Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Privacy DeFi's channel. We're sitting here once again with Andrew Young. And Andrew, it's been a while since you've been on. Last time was in the year of 2021. How is the new year treating you so far?
It's been great. There's been a little bit of rough. It's been a little bit rough in the market, but that's actually great because it opens up a ton of opportunities in the crypto space.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunities that we're looking at, especially with sort of the proliferation of new blockchains, and with that comes new DeFi ecosystems. And so yeah, so while it's sort of short term painful, it's definitely opened up tons of opportunities to invest, to liquidity mine, to create projects. It's a good time.
Agreed. When it comes down to it, volatility is kind of the bread and butter of crypto. And when you first get into it, yes, it might shock you a little bit, but overall, it's completely normal, par for the course for things to move around. And the trend so far has been largely upwards for the most part. So as long as you aren't making any crazy trades, typically it's not too bad. But looking back at 2021, Andrew, in the rearview mirror, how do you feel the year overall went? Is there any big highlights you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I think the big highlight was that our thesis of a multi-chain sort of DeFi world is playing out. So if you look at the start of 2021, Ethereum's dominance, or I guess you could call it market share of the DeFi ecosystem, was, I believe, around 95%. You're starting to see a little bit of activity with sort of BSC and a tiny bit in Polygon. And and what's happened, and I guess I should say, our thesis sort of this whole year was that there there was a huge amount of sort of tailwinds for these new ecosystems, new blockchains. And and what gave us a lot of confidence in that was just both obviously just the proliferation of a ton of new blockchains, but then second of all was sort of the state of the Ethereum sort of user experience.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that transaction fees on Ethereum were extremely high, and that sort of pushed a ton of growth to these alternative chains. And then you combine that with these what are called sort of protocol-wide liquidity mining campaigns. Essentially, these new blockchains that are trying to gain market share
Mm.
are financing their DeFi ecosystems by essentially providing these huge subsidies, effectively. So Avalanche launched a $200 million liquidity mining campaign, for example, for their own ecosystem. And you sort of combine the launch of a bunch of new chains, very high gas fees, transaction costs for Ethereum, and then these sort of liquidity mining subsidies from these newer blockchains. And the result is that DeFi on these alternative layer ones has exploded.
Mhm.
And just looking at it today, Ethereum's market share of DeFi is down to about 65%, which is a huge change from the start of the year. And yeah, so it's been cool to see that thesis sort of play out.
Yeah, it is interesting. And while a big believer in Ethereum myself, it has been crazy to see just how insane these fees have gotten, essentially pushing any small players out of the market when it comes to swaps or anything. You really don't want to be paying anywhere near over $100 for any transaction whatsoever is just getting way outside the ballpark. And when you can go to just BNB, the Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, or so on, and pay virtually nothing for them, it's kind of a no-brainer. And it's unfortunate to see Ethereum kind of becoming a dinosaur, but I think we'll still see how that plays out in 2022 if that bounces back at all. But they're going to have to change soon, or else it will eventually be phased out by one of these. And if there was one, how do you think this is going to play out this year?
Yeah, so we're big believers in sort of the multi-chain thesis, which is that there's going to be sort of a number of different blockchains that are used for specific use cases, and so we don't believe. So I mean, obviously that's been our thesis with sort of Ethereum, looking at non-Ethereum DeFi ecosystems, and so we continue to have that sort of thesis.
Mhm.
I think we sort of think of the smart contract world in three waves. So the first wave was essentially just Ethereum, which focuses on security and decentralization over everything else, which is, in my opinion, where the majority of the value will lie, and it's a good sort of positioning to take. Then the second wave, which is sort of where we are right now, is blockchains that are taking that are sort of prioritizing scalability over decentralization. So those are things like Solana, Polygon, Avalanche, among many others. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the growth in sort of 2021. And I also think in 2022 as well. And then the third wave is what we think of application specific or use case specific blockchains. So these are networks that are sort of designed or specialized around a specific use case, sort of similar to how countries specialize around a number of key industries. We think that's going to be a big trend in sort of 2022 and maybe later half of 2022. And that's projects like Osmosis, which is for decentralized exchanges, Ronin, which is sort of the base layer blockchain for Axie Infinity, which is the largest play to earn or blockchain video game you can think of in the world. And a project like SX Network for prediction markets. There's a number of new sort of blockchains coming out that are focused around specific use cases, and it allows them to sort of gain an advantage over more generic scalability, I guess, blockchains or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think there's a ton of growth across the board. Like I said, we think the DeFi space, the amount of TVL or total value locked in the DeFi space right now is about $250 billion. And we strongly believe that that's going to grow exponentially over the next sort of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, nothing, even this little short-term market turbulence has not changed our opinion of that. I mean, we were sort of in the DeFi space 3 years ago when I think we first hit $1 billion of TVL. So, I mean, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the lifespan of new ideas entering the crypto slash blockchain space, which is itself new. But DeFi, the term, has been around for a long time, and there was early movers, and it's crazy to see it going from where it is now to $250 billion. But then when you look at it, that's still nothing. That's still just a drop in the bucket versus the traditional finance space. And even so, like again, look at the moments the NFTs had, man. Like NFTs were around way before they had that big boom in popularity just as well. And they blew up insanely.
Yeah, no, NFTs have been huge. It's definitely, it's been interesting to watch sort of the NFT movement. I will say I'm more focused on the DeFi space over sort of the NFT space. And so I was kind of surprised actually how fast the space grew. And I was particularly surprised by how much the mainstream market sort of got involved with NFTs, sort of starting with NBA Top Shot and now with sort of Bored Apes and a number of other key NFT spaces. I think the sort of metaverse is another space to watch as well. It's been growing in the background for a while, and then it sort of blew up when Facebook changed their name to Meta. Mm-hmm. You see projects like Decentraland that have grown tremendously since then. And so I think, and it also opens up a lot of opportunities on layer 2, because I mean, this will sound kind of crazy, but Decentraland is essentially a metaverse with scarce real estate in the city, and you can buy it. And people are talking about getting mortgages to buy these pieces of land. So it's still very, very early. I think we're still multiple years away. But what's really cool about the crypto space is you got to constantly be on your toes and be sort of watching for what the next big growth areas are going to be, just because it's truly, it's truly a multifaceted space.
Yeah, I agree. That does make sense. And kind of going from that, so that's how things have went so far. Looking forward to the rest of 2022. I know, publicly traded company can't say too much, but like, what's the general outline? How do you think things are going to go for the rest of the year?
I think so. Crypto is obviously sort of, some people think of crypto as being priced as sort of like an inflation hedge. For the most part, we think of crypto as being, it's sort of priced as a high growth company, I guess, high growth industry. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is obviously it's correlated to a certain extent with the broader market. I guess irrespective of sort of how the overall market goes and how therefore sort of crypto performs within there, we're extremely bullish on DeFi as a subsector, particularly DeFi 1.0, which is sort of a subcategory of DeFi, which talks about essentially the original sort of original DeFi projects, just because sort of they did relatively poorly in the second half of 2021.
Mhm.
And so there's sort of a lot of attractive opportunities there, especially now as they also go multi-chain. So a big sort of thing we've seen is highly popular DeFi protocols are increasingly deploying on multiple chains rather than trying to just stick to sort of Ethereum.
Yeah.
And so this creates tons of opportunities because sort of each new deployment comes with its own set of sort of opportunities with it. And so, yeah, so we're very excited about that. And yeah, I mean, we're still very, I'm personally still very bullish on both the whole crypto space, but especially DeFi as a whole. And just continuing to focus on these, like I said, that sort of second and third category of the smart contract world, which is sort of the non-Ethereum blockchains. Right
Yeah.
now, there's about 50 blockchains, sort of 50 viable blockchains that have their own DeFi ecosystem, and I think that number is going to grow dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely share your sentiment there about kind of being a permeable about this industry as a whole. It's always full of exciting stuff, and you're right. You do kind of have to look ahead, have a little bit of vision, and then you can kind of see where things might go. And it always excites me every time. So I'll be in this industry for a long time. But Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the 2022 kickoff update, and thank you everybody for watching. If you guys have any questions for Andrew or anyone else on the team, let us know. We'll happily dive into them. But for now, Andrew, do you have any closing words for people?
No, not really. I think we're very excited about the crypto market, obviously, and everyone on the Layer 2 and Prophecy DeFi team is continuing to work hard. And yeah, I think 2022. I think the first half could be maybe a little rough given sort of the market, but I'm very, very excited about the sort of long-term future of the space, and particularly DeFi space.
Perfect. Well, again, Andrew, thank you for coming on. Thank you, everybody watching. Stay tuned for more updates coming soon, and have a wonderful day.